In this lesson, we're going to talk a little bit about some session hijacking and some of the tools that you can use to do it with. Now, I'm using, for this particular demo, a self-contained, purposely vulnerable web app called Webgoat, put on by the company or the group called OWASP. So, great tool, and I'm using an older version, one of the Webgoat 5.4. So, if you download it, basically all you have to do is download it, and then you have to run a Tomcat server right there to be able to run the Webgoat. There's plenty of documentation on the website on how to run this particular one. So what I'm using here is I'm using this in conjunction with Burp Suite. Now Burp Suite is an HTTP interceptor used by most web application developer or pen testers. It's a very good tool, very prominent one in the web app department, and we're going to be using that today. Now, a side note is if you are doing this Webgoat with your current browsers, the current browsers have some problem doing localhost proxying, which is basically what you're doing with your Burp Suite. So here's a trick to get past that problem. Is when you actually do Webgoat, they'll probably give you instructions on what to type in the URL. It'll be localhost/webgoat, and by the way, it is case sensitive. So you got to make sure the capital W and the capital G is there. So usually they'll say localhost/webgoat/attack. Okay? And that will bring you up with a menu that asks for your credentials, username and password. They're both guest. Okay, the username is guest, the password is guest. And something else that you need to be aware of is I wouldn't do it that way if you're going to be doing Burp Suite. Because in order to use Burp Suite, you have to say localhost./ Okay, so there's a little trick they put on the browsers there to be able to do localhost proxying. It used to not be an issue with older versions of the browsers, but currently this is what they've been doing. So in order to use Burp Suite with it, you have to do localhost./ then the capital W Webgoat and all that jazz. So once you've logged into it, I'm going to show you a couple differences here. Now, the username that we logged in was guest and the password we logged in was guest, and they give you challenges here, and they basically want us to find out what the password is and what the credentials are, using something like an interceptor. So in this case with Burp Suite, I can intercept stuff, pages, requests, before they actually get to the server. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and submit, and what it will do is it will catch it. Okay, here's the post command. You can see up the top, right up here, it says post. So we caught the post command coming in. Now the key thing to pull out of this is information that's listed here, and you have to kind of know what you're looking at. And I don't know if I can actually zoom in on this or not. No, maybe not. I was looking to see if there was a way I could zoom in a little bit more, but I don't think there is. Anyways, something to look for is if you're looking for credentials, a typical web browser that doesn't use SSL will base 64 encode your credentials. So when you log into a regular form that doesn't use SSL for encryption, you're going to be using your username and password, and they're going to keep it in a kind of encrypted format called base 64. Only problem is base 64 is fairly easy to reverse engineer. It's also easy to determine a base 64 by looking at it. For instance, anything that ends with an equal or sometimes two equal symbols will probably be a base 64. That's my indication that this value right here is that base 64 encrypted credential. So with Burp Suite, I can highlight it and I can send it to a decoder, which is up here on the top tab. And there is that base 64 that we see there. And then on the right-hand side, I can say decode as base 64. And there is my username and password as I had logged in. So yeah, pretty handy. Now you can forward on traffic as well. I'm going to go ahead and just turn my intercept off. And I got to remember which pages I'm on here. So you can see clearly there that we can intercept different packets and find out inside the packet the encrypted base 64 credentials for that particular site there. So that's one way you can do things on that using Burp Suite. So some people will say, well, there's got to be a better way to do things, and there is. It's called multi-factor. So if you have to enter in a PIN or password or credential plus an additional value, that is always going to be way better than just generic, single password, single credential. So a good example is a bank. So we got one here. Let's see, multi-level login. So a good example is at a bank, a lot of times you'll have what they call a transaction number. And that one there would be like a second factor, like you put in your credentials on the web page for doing your banking to log into the website, but to actually get to your account, sometimes you'll have to enter another credential or another value or number. And sometimes they'll give you a list of your valid TAN numbers that you'll be using for your bank. So this is an example of two-factor authentication. So here it's telling me that I'm an attacker called Joe. It says I got a valid account with WebGoat Financial. My goal is to log in as Jane. So I assume Jane probably has an account here on WebGoat Financial as well. My username is Joe, and my password is banana. So let's do that. Let's log in. So Joe banana. Oops, hold on. ENAANA. And submit. Okay, now it's telling me in order for me to get in, this is my second factor here. If I wanted to go ahead and log into my account, I would have to enter this second additional factor, which is a TAN number. So I'm going to enter in my legitimate TAN number. Okay. But before I submit it to the server, I'm going to go ahead and capture it. Session hijack, basically. Because that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to hijack the session going from my computer to the actual server itself. So I submit, and I've captured it. Now, I don't really care in this example about this base 64 because this is my password and my username, and this is my account. So I really don't need to crack my username and password because I know what it is. I created it. So that's not the goal and gist of this particular demo. So I could care less about that base 64. The question here was I had to log in as Jane. Well, if you do a little looking around, you'll see something down here called hidden user. Now, by the name alone, you can assume this is a hidden value not normally found through page source. So you'll notice the hidden value is Joe. What if I go ahead and change that to Jane? And then I click forward, forward again, and there we go. I've logged in now as Jane, and there's Jane's MasterCard number. Pretty crazy that this would actually work, but it does. Not on every site, obviously, but there is quite a few ones out there that will have that happen. Another issue that you can come across, and this, by the way, is what we're doing is session hijacking, where we're taking a session that we see and we're jumping in the middle, kind of a man in the middle type of deal. Another way you can do this as well is when web applications are designed in a way where there's no thread safety. In other words, if I have a variable in one thread, I don't want it to interact or hijack with the other thread, so the other tab. I don't want one tab hijacking values and information in another tab. Okay. So in this case, we're going to come over here to the shopping cart. And actually, let me go ahead and turn off my intercept here. All right, so on the shopping cart here, we can see that, let's see, for this exercise, your mission is to exploit concurrency issue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open another tab with the exact same thing. So I've got two windows right here with the exact same thing. So let's look at the least expensive item. Let's see here. It looks like the Hitachi. Let's go ahead and hit one there, and let's purchase it. So it's now making a variable here with this particular amount for this particular device. Now, if I were to come over here to the other side, the other tab, nothing's been done over here yet, obviously, because I just opened the tab. I'm going to look at the most expensive item here. We're going to look at the Sony Vaio here. Put a 1 there. And I'm going to go ahead and update the cart. Okay, essentially what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to hijack a variable being done in the other tab. So if I come back to the other tab, because we're still in the same session, and I go ahead and click on confirm, it says, thank you for shopping. You've illegally received a 90% discount. The police are on your way to your IP address. So essentially, I bought the Sony Vaio for $169. Pretty crazy, huh? Wrap your brain around that for a minute. Now you can do the same type of deal with a regular shopping cart, like let's see, I think this one here. Yeah, so like this one here. They want us to buy this TV for less than the purchase price. So the purchase price is $3,000. So what would I do here? Well, I could turn on my intercept and purchase. Now down here, if you take a look at this whole transaction, this whole package going to the web server, you can see that the price is already listed in the packet going to the server. So basically, the server doesn't realize, if I'm not doing server-side validation, the server doesn't realize that whatever number this is not really set in stone here, because all I got to do, in this case, get rid of that and put like $1.99, because it's still going to the server, and it's still a legitimate response from the legitimate website. I've just captured it before. I did a man in the middle, a session hijack, before it reached the actual destination server. So for $1.99, let's forward that again. And there we go. I've just bought a $3,000 item for $1. Pretty crazy, right? So that's kind of how you would do that with shopping carts. Now again, I'm going to give my little disclaimer out here just in case anybody's curious of getting a little jumpy with this. Don't do it. It's illegal. If you don't have permission, don't do it. Okay? So, another way you can actually hijack things on web applications is through, let's go to the AJAX XML one. Okay, here's one right here. And actually, let me turn my Burp Suite off. What do you guys think of that Burp Suite tool? Pretty crazy, right? So here it's telling me, let's see. Now this whole deal with AJAX is basically allowing me to go ahead and in a web page, if I put something in, it will dynamically change the page without me having to click submit. For instance, when I do enter in my account ID here in a minute, it will automatically, okay, without me doing anything, reflect it in the page itself, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So it says here that I've got some rewards that are allotted to me, and my account ID has a certain number of reward points. Now, what I would like is the Core Duo laptop or the Hawaiian Cruise, but I don't know if I have enough in my account ID for that. So to figure it out, I have to put in my account ID, which is listed right there. So 83623. Now watch what I do when I hit 9. See how it automatically changes the page to reflect what it's seen? So it was looking for that number. And it looks like it tells me my balance is 100 points. So really all I can do is just select these. Okay? That's all I can get. However, I would like to get these other two. So what I could do, again, turn on my intercept, because we're doing a session hijack, submit it, and take a look at how they actually list the variables. See this right here? And check 1001 equals on. And check 1002 equals on. And check 1003 equals on. So I would assume, based off of the 3 that I've checked here, that this is 1001, 2, and 3, which would then possibly mean that the other 2 are 4 and 5. So if that's the case, we can go ahead and look after the on. Okay, right there. And we can say, let's see, how's my ampersand? Ampersand. Check 100, and we're trying for 4, right? So on and check 004 equals on. Make sure I'm doing that correctly. I want to just make sure I'm spelling everything correctly here. Check 1004. Yep, looks good to me. And then we'll do an and. So check 1005 equals on as well, and then the and submit after that, and we should be good. All right, so let's go ahead and forward on to that. And there we go. It says we completed the lesson. So basically, we've given ourselves the ability to gain these other 2 things here. Now, another way you can do that as well is with something they call JSON. Turn this off here. And you've probably seen this before. This is a good example of one. So it says here, we're traveling from Boston, Massachusetts, where the airport code is BOS, to Seattle, Washington, where the airport code is SEA. Once you enter the 3-digit code of the airport, an AJAX request will be executed asking for the ticket price. You're going to notice there are 2 flights available, an expensive one with no stops, yay, and another cheaper one with 2 stops, boo. Your goal is to try to get the one with no stops, but cheaper. So let's go ahead and enter it in, BOS. And what was the other one? SEA. Oops. Okay, as soon as we do that, it actually interacts with the page automatically for us. And we can see right there, number of stops is 0. So that one right there. And we see that one's for $600. Turn our intercept on. Submit. And we can see here that we know it's $600, which tells me that the percentage 24 is kind of a placeholder variable. So therefore, I'll leave the 24 and I'll change the 6 to a 1. So now we'll get it for $100. Forward it, and life is good. So that's kind of an example of how you can use some session hijacking using this particular tool called Webgoat, along with Burp Suite. Pretty cool suite of tools at your disposal here. And again, these are free for you to download, both Burp Suite and Webgoat. There is a paid version of Burp Suite, which is mainly for professional pen testers that use it for other features. But the majority of things that you want to do, you can probably do with the free version itself. So I hope you guys have learned a lot of stuff here about session hijacking and how it can be used in a hacking standpoint.